Here I am at a precipice, at a crossroads. I find myself suddenly reassessing all aspects of my life, all the facets of who Holly actually is. Where I've come from, where I'm going, who I'm going to recreate myself as next. I think we can all say that we've been there at some point in our lives where we've come to a crossroads, where we've come to a fork in the road and we have to decide what is going to be my focus, what is going to drive me forward. The thing that's been driving my life forward for most of my 30 years on this planet has been music, has been writing, has been the expression of all aspects of who I am onto paper, into song, onto canvas, into discussion, whatever I could possibly think of to express myself fully and completely. I'm more than just this physical being. I'm more than just this meat suit. I am a soul having a human experience on this sometimes crazy, sometimes nefarious, but most of the time miraculous and wonderful planet. And this is what I sometimes need to remind myself about when I'm at that crossroads, when I'm at that pinnacle. For the first maybe 23 years of my life, music was absolutely all there was. I worked in Los Angeles. I worked with big producers and other people who aren't in the music business would know based on their celebrity status or whatever. When I was 16, my greatest goals in life were to be world famous, to have millions of dollars, not just for my own personal enjoyment, but to also take care of my family, my parents who were very supportive of me and my music career. And, these things that don't actually matter in the grand scheme of things. They're very status oriented. They're very surface oriented, and here I am at 30 years old and I look back at that and, whatever these ages mean, but here I am at 30 years old and I look back at that and I think about, yes, how young and how naive I was and how misdirected I was in focusing my energy toward that, even though I always loved the music. Something that was driving me was that possibility of fame and the possibility of riches. And now here I am looking back at that and realizing, yes, that was naive, but that was part of my journey. That's part of what makes Holly Holly. And I think that we all have those moments in our lives where we look back at us at 10, we look back at us at 15, we look back at us at 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 and however long ago we look back at, and we realize that maybe that was naive, maybe that was a little stupid, maybe that was whatever other judgmental thing we could possibly think up towards ourselves. But in the grand scheme of things, that got us to where we are now. And in its reality, it is quite perfection when you think about it. So here I am now, and I'm at this crossroads trying to reassess my life, not because of extreme depression, not because of, horrible, terrible things that have happened to me or that I've created for myself. But more so because I've seen the breakdown of quite a few relationships lately. I've seen the breakdown of a few of my thought processes, and I've changed a little bit in terms of who I am now versus who I was even 3 months ago. And I know that we all go through this and we get to those, what us spiritualists like to call the dark day of the soul. It sounds very ominous, but we all go through stuff like that where all of a sudden everything from the past comes up to the forefront, where every problem we've ever gone through, or every abusive word that was ever said to us, or every embarrassing moment we ever somehow survived through, and question how we survived through, where everything comes to the forefront of our brains and we find ourselves rethinking about that stuff and, in effect, re-feeling all those feelings that we felt at the time, and I wouldn't say this is built primarily upon insecurity. I wouldn't say it's built primarily upon, anything negative, realistically. I mean, I think there's a really good reason why these things have come back to me. And I think that there's a really good reason that these things come back to all of us. We come to a crossroads. We come to a standstill because we need to reassess our situation. And here I am reassessing life. And maybe a lot of you are there with me right now. And that is the purpose of doing, I don't even want to call this a show, having a conversation like this, and granted it's a one-sided conversation, but I hope that there are lots of yes, I understands and mm-hms on the other end from all of you, because I think that while we may be very different, I had a friend to me say last night at a get-together that we are all snowflakes, in this, and I'm totally paraphrasing him, but we are all snowflakes in the sense that we are all very unique, we are all one of a kind, and we are all very different from one another. But at the base, the most base of basicness, I don't even know what words you could use there, the most basic of basicness, I guess, we are still all snowflakes. So the thing that brings us together is the fact that we are all different, but we are all the same. Does that make sense? Being cut from the same cloth, so to speak. And he wasn't speaking so much in the spiritual sense, what I gathered, but me now saying in the spiritual sense, whether you believe in God or whatever else, my beliefs about God are very, the word God for me is not religious and is very interchangeable with the words universe, love, light, life, and you could probably hear any sentence with the word God in it and interchange any one of those words and it still makes sense. And maybe it makes even more sense because it doesn't have the religious connotation connected to it, which sometimes tends to bastardize the word God as far as I'm concerned. But on a spiritual sense, we are all cut from the same cloth. Anne Rice once said, if God is the fire, we are all little flames. And I like to think of it that way myself, that we are all like a math problem. We are all sums of the whole, parts of the one. And I hope that this is the beginning of a conversation for many people. That's the point. The reason I don't want this to be a show is because I think that almost, in a way, the word show almost perverts what it is exactly that I'm hoping to attain. With these, albeit one-sided conversations, I hope to entertain, I hope to inspire, and I hope to bring awareness in whatever way that I can, because I've done quite a bit of research about many different things. And not just that, I haven't just read things, I've experienced things. And I think that that's almost where the real living lies, is you can read and read and read and read and read. You can, let's use an example. You can read and read and read about angels or extraterrestrials, which in my sense are incredibly interchangeable. But until you actually have an experience, until you actually meet what you see as an angel or meet an extraterrestrial, or even have a dream about them, or astral travel, it's still just reading. It's like the difference in the education system, if we can call it that, the education system where, it's all about memorize this date, memorize this person's name, memorize this time, memorize this event. There's such a difference between that and asking someone what they think, asking someone to critically deconstruct or construct something, and I think that that's really important. And the whole point of this, my whole focus to share this with anyone who's listening, is to point out that we are creating our lives all the time. Everything that is quote unquote happening to us is our creation. And it may not seem that way, especially when you think about people who are in other countries and who are really, really suffering in a way that we don't even a suffering that we don't even understand, being in North America or wherever you are, in Australia or Europe, or if you look at the Middle East and you look at Africa, it's an entirely different thing. But I still believe, in a very spiritualist sense, at the same time, that while these nefarious things are happening, we have created this. I will always go back to that, and I will always look at my own. I think what happens is, what's important is what is at home. What it is that you bring to the table, to your family, to your circle of friends, to your own personal sanity, and if you're looking at your own life and it's not what you want it to be, and you find that terrible things just keep, quote unquote, happening to you, maybe you need to be where I am. Not that I'm better. That's not what I'm saying. Maybe you need to be at that place, if you're not already, where you're reassessing where to go next. Because actually, when you think about it, it's a really good spot to be in. And some people will disagree with that. Some people might think, well, no, because it's a very unsure place. But the beauty of it is that you are creating your world. So if you're in that space where you're at that fork in the road and you are needing to reassess the situation, my God, that's a blessing, to be able to